Deanna Bates.
Oh,
I want that to continue.
Another day in the circus, right?
Oh, yeah. He's not gonna come.
Hello, Mr. Shepro.
Hello
I don't
there.
think he'll ever come back to public service.
Oh, no.
Yeah, good morning. We're ready to get started here. My name is Michael Linder. I'm co-chair of this legislative committee.
Yeah.
We call the meeting to order at 10:03. Would you call the roll, please?
Bates,
Bates here.
Doherty,
Already here.
Molina,
Molina's present.
Silva,
Silva is here.
Strathman, Gums,
Comes here.
Linder,
Linder here.
Pura, Tepi,
Jeppy here.
you have quorum.
Good, we have a quorum. Approval of the minutes from March 22nd. May I have a motion in a second?
Already moved for you.
Already
Silva
moved. Silva seconds. Any questions, additions, deletions? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Bates,
Bates, yes.
Doherty,
Yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Silva,
Silva, yes.
Strathman, Gums,
Comes, yes.
Linder,
Linder, yes.
approved.
Okay, we're to public comment. I see no one here. Is there anyone online? Seeing none. Move on. New business. Legislative updates. Ms. Gums is in Springfield. What's going on in Springfield, Ms. Gums?
Well, we've got a lot going on in Springfield right now. The LGDF fund was discussed yesterday. They had hearings on that. We did witness slips for our animal control issues and some other bills. I'll be meeting with a bunch of people today, and obviously you all have kept track of your legislative update emails. I think there's we'll get on under new business. We'll talk about the chickens.
Chickens. Okay,
Chickens.
all right. Yeah, bring your chicken to dinner. Anyone else on the committee have any updates on legislation?
I do.
Madam Chair,
Oh, thank you very much. It's a,
microphone, please.
it is on. There we go. Let's bring it closer to me. I just want to share with this committee that the work of our advocacy to pay down the Long Meadow Parkway seems to be working successfully. And the money to pay down, the requested money to pay down the rest of the bridge apparently is included in this year's budget. Of course, we've got a long way to go yet to make sure that the budget is passed and then signed. So the big input now is to make sure that we keep the money in there. We have collected and asked for additional letters of support from other communities, and that was sent out to Dan Showman and Christina Castro to make sure that it gets shared appropriately. And I want to thank very much, of course, Corinne, Dan Showman's partner, as well as Representative Suzanne Ness, for really helping us steer this and get the rest of the money paid down for the Long Meadow Parkway. So fingers crossed, and prayers are being sent to make sure that this is very successful. And I could not be happier. So that's my update.
I have a question on that. I keep hearing two numbers, the 17.5 million to match last year, then I hear 12.5 million. What is that about?
The 12.5 million is what we asked from the state. We have matching funds from Cook County, of which we've been working with. And again, Dan has been very helpful with that, as well as Tom Rickard. And then we've asked McHenry County for another $1 million, and we're going to be working on that. And Tom, who's online right now, has been very supportive of that as well and helping us through that. And then there'll be some other money coming through the ARPA funds that is earmarked for that.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, we have one resolution. Do you all have copies of it? Mailed to you, or you were given copies? It's the resolution on the lobbyist situation. We've been through the whole process of receiving the proposals, interviewing the lobbyists, scoring the sheets, and came out with a recommendation that we hire McGuire Woods at the cost of $10,000 a month. At this point, we have the need of a motion and a second so that we can discuss this.
Bates moved.
Silva seconds.
Who moved?
Bates moved.
Bates moved, Silva second. Okay, thank you. The McGuire Woods Fund organization is the one that came out ahead in the scoring. It is the one that we're recommending to the committee today, and I'd like to hear some discussion on it.
Molina has a question.
Yes, please.
I'm not sure if we've discussed this before in this committee, but can you outline what the legislative priorities are that we'll be providing to the lobbyist, kind of as their direction?
Well, I'll tell you, that's one of my big goals, is that we have not successfully gathered all of the county's legislative priorities into a legislative platform for the county. And that's one of the things that the lobbyists will help us to do. I went to the DuPage County website the other day. They have a legislative platform. Some of us were at a meeting of the Kane County Farm Bureau the other day. They handed out their legislative platform. But in reality, we have not set a legislative agenda totally. We know that there's development of water resources are chasing down some of the stuff on solar and wind, and we're ending up having to amend some of our language to meet the state language, but we still might want to look for some amendments there. The things they talk about in animal control today, there's just all kinds of stuff, but it's coming from all directions, and we need to centralize it. We need to get a directory of it, and we need to get through this committee and then the board to adopt a legislative platform so that we can answer that question you just asked, because right now it's kind of here, there, and everywhere. And we've done a good job of chasing legislation, but it would be a lot better if it were centralized. We'd have a written platform. We could be encouraging things like witness slips and so forth on a more organized basis.
So my second part, Chair Linder, is that part of the contract? Was that part of the scope of work that was requested by when we sent the RPQs and these two lobbyist groups responded, was putting together a legislative platform?
Specifically in the request for proposals to put together a platform, no. We will get that assistance, but it's something we need to do. It's our platform, not theirs.
Yeah, so my concern is I feel like this is a little ahead of the board, ahead of the game here, spending $10,000 on priorities that we haven't even outlined. My second concern is the whereas the funding for this agreement is to be determined. It doesn't look like we have a full resolution to discuss here. So I would be in favor of just kind of holding this over for a little while until we have all our ducks in a row.
Okay, this is not the first resolution that's gone to committee with the funding not completely squared away. We have a meeting on Monday with the stakeholders within the county to put together. We've had assurances from a couple of the electeds that they will make this work with help from their budgets, but we need to firm that up. And we've requested a meeting of them on Monday to do that. This is something we should have had a lobbyist in place in January, and it was just something that didn't happen for whatever reason. It's not part of our history. So we're getting started at it, but before this gets to the board, before it gets to finance, in fact, the funding will be in place.
May I speak, Mr. Linder?
Sure, thank you.
Thank you. You and Michelle Gumbs attended a meeting where we had all of the countywide elected officials present, and the funding for this position was discussed at that time. The sheriff did not attend, nor did the state's attorney. The state's attorney has volunteered she said this several times that she has resources available. I have not yet talked to the sheriff, was not forthcoming about resources. This was the pattern that happened in the previous contract that we had with Mr. Showman. But it was very clear, and again, you were there as well as with Ms. Gumbs, that all the other countywides are very much interested in participating in this lobbyist. And what they requested when I asked, do you have any money from your funds that you could transfer over so that all are in? They said, no, they did not. And they would wish that this would be a county board effort, that we would pay for it and we would contract with it to be equitable so that lobbyists could be shared equally amongst all partners, all elected officials, as their needs indicate. So that's what the outcome of that meeting was about. So that is my understanding of how this is going to be put together, the funding of it.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'm Ken Shepro, Special Assistant State's Attorney. I'm authorized to advise if there's some question about it, that the state's attorney has indicated that she is willing to contribute toward whichever candidate is recommended by the committee.
Thank you. Yeah, we've had that informal conversation before, and we're hoping on Monday to actually firm up this much from the state's attorney, this much from the sheriff, this much from each one.
Mr.
Other
Chairman,
questions?
Bates, please.
Yes, Ms. Bates.
Bates, please.
Yes.
I respectfully consider what Ms. Molina has said. And I would like to add that I think we have waited a very long time to make this decision. I think our co-chairs have done all their due diligence in trying to decide which of these lobbyists would help us the most. And so some of the legislators who I've talked to recently, they are eager for us to have a lobbyist right now to help us and them understand issues such as funding issues for a lot of different projects. So I urge us to move forward on this and take a vote today.
Thank you, Ms. Bates. Anyone else?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Tempe.
Tempe here. I have some serious concerns about this, and let me share some of them. I think it's very important that we have a lobbyist, but more importantly, I think it's very important that we have objectives, goals, and a way to achieve them and a way to deliver. Part of the challenge associated with this is there is no staff assign or staff involvement associated with this. So if we were to hire a lobbyist and do things, is this something that's going to be directed by board members? Is this something that's going to be directed by the elected officials? Is this something that's going to be in a laissez-faire type environment? There really is no effective plan that people have been able to share with me that made sense. You know, in every other instance, we have staff people that are busily doing things. And I would probably assume that DuPage County, if they have an agenda, that they have staff people that have worked on that agenda and that follow through with it. Okay, so it really concerns me that it does not appear that we have the ability to execute. And I have concerns that I don't think we really have objectives. If we were to go out and achieve more grants from the state, are these things that we're looking at? Are we going to get grants from the federal government? Do we have the ability to implement them? Has the staff been involved in any way, shape, or form in figuring out what they are? So do I think we need people in this? Yes, I think they've been invaluable in helping us settle the Long Meadow Bridge situation. I think they would be invaluable in other areas, but I think we're putting the cart before the horse. And I think Ms. Molina or Ms. Silva's established that, and I would agree with her. So my suggestion would be to table this, because without appropriate funding and forethought, I don't think it's going to get past the Finance Committee or the Executive Committee.
Mr. Chairman, Bates, please.
Yes, Bates. Go ahead, please.
I believe that saying we can't get a lobbyist because we don't have staff assigned is a red herring. I think this is an argument that does not apply in this case, because we need this lobbyist, and yes, we do not have a legislative staff person, but every board member, every member of this committee, and every director of any of our departments will be ready and eager to serve with this, to liaison with this lobbyist as we're trying to learn more about the issues that we need to grapple with. This lobbyist, I believe, will help us set priorities. We don't know what we don't know about what things we should be fighting for Kane County. This is a red herring to say we don't have the staff to help us with. Let's get the lobbyists. Maybe then we'll get a staffer. We can't wait. We cannot wait another day. Thank you, sir.
Ms. Bates. Anyone else? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Jarrett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I think the point Mr. Tepe raises, it just kind of highlights the difficulties of a decentralized form of government that we have here. In his example, DuPage, for instance, these kinds of efforts are conducted by an administrator's office. It's not just done nilly-willy by all the department heads coming together. They have a different type of government than we do. The power structure here is more diffuse. It's horizontal. So from my experience, I was formerly a co-chair of legislative once upon a time. And the co-chair and I attempted to establish some legislative priorities, which we did, but it was not an easy task. It was very difficult wrangling everybody and trying to get follow-up. Not everyone was really following legislation, and they were kind of looking to us to say, hey, what's out there that we should be looking at first? And then we'll tell you what our priorities are, which we didn't have the capacity to do for them. And it wasn't the cleanest process. So because of that decentralized nature of the organization that we have, you know, if you and your co-chair aren't able to really manage that process because you have other things going on and it takes time to do that, it's helpful to have resources to help manage that process. So I could see bringing a legislative team on, a lobbyist team on to help with that process would be very beneficial for the entire county to make sure that we get our legislative priorities correct, we get them right, and they're based on more current information rather than whatever is available to the co-chairs at the time. So I would say that yes, it is problematic, but that is the type of government we have. So it's incumbent on us as the board, as the decision makers ultimately, to figure out how we want to do that. So that's just my 2 cents.
And
Madam Chair.
thank
go
you
ahead.
very much. I have, I agree with Mr. Tepe. When we spoke, that was Ms. Gums, who's online, and yourself, with Karen. We spoke about the need of having a staff member for this committee.
Karen who?
Oh, this is Corinne.
No, you said
I'm
you spoke with Karen?
Karen, yes, Kutzman. She's our procurement officer. She was in
Thank
the
you.
room. You're welcome. So I brought up that discussion about one of the issues of this committee neither having a budget or neither having any staff. So it was unusual for this committee to do that. This committee was formed under prior administration to advocate because my predecessor felt that this would be more appropriate than getting a lobbyist. This discussion is to change that, but to show an example, this current resolution that's in front of you was not drafted by anybody in the government offices. It was drafted by someone in the sheriff's office. So that's who reached out to this. And instead of reaching out to one of our staff members, Ms. Gums thought it would be best to get the resources of the sheriff to help support this. So it went through a couple of changes, and that just, I think, indicates and highlights the necessary need, with Mr. Tepe said, to have a legislative director who's on staff, not a lobbyist, who's to advocate for the work and the suggestions done by this board, this committee, as well as other elected officials, to consolidate that, to act as a support for this committee. So what we're asking for is an additional, we have $45,000 in the budget right now on this budget line. We're asking for an additional $75,000. So it'd be $120,000 annually for this individual, 2-year contract. So that's $240,000. So I think the real discussion, besides just the need, is this something that we want to spend that kind of money on? Or do we want to take that $75,000 increase that's going to be needed to help support a staff member to bring on board, to advocate and to coalesce all of us into a very strong front for legislative agendas, so that then we can move forward with a lobbyist to say, these are our priorities. How do we get them?
Anyone else?
Doherty's got his hand up.
Mr. Behrman?
Berman here. I'm really
I got you,
concerned
Gary.
about the
Go ahead, Mr. Berman.
All right. I'm concerned about the financial part of it. We do not have a budget approved for $120,000 a year. As the chairman said, we have 48,000, 45,000. So I think interesting where we're going to come up with that extra funds.
Basically, from the electeds, especially the sheriff, the state's attorney, who assured us that they can get us there. And we're meeting Monday to put that together. Before this gets to finance, that'll be put together.
Mr. Chairman, States,
Yes.
please.
You know
Yes,
what,
please.
Mr. Doherty has.
Oh, I'm
his
sorry,
hand up.
Mr. Doherty was next. I keep forgetting to look at the screen here.
I'm confused now by the conversation. So there are people saying they want to spend $75,000 on a staff member to decide whether or not we should spend $120,000 on a lobby firm. I mean, you want to hire somebody to tell us who to hire?
No,
No, that's not correct. No, that's not correct at all.
Excuse me, I'm recognized.
go ahead, Mr. Doherty.
Thank you. So we have staff and we have lobbyists, but we're talking about this like it's $120,000. Now, I don't know if I've been lied to, but I've been told that the coroner is interested, the sheriff is interested, the state's attorney is interested. They're all interested in paying for this. We need to move this forward from here so that we can get them on board. We can't get them on board to a maybe. We have to have a process. So the process is we want to hire lobbyists. The legislative committee says we're all in favor of hiring a lobbyist. Then we have to go and say, we have this amount of money on the board. We need this amount of money from this, and then we present it to finance. You talk about putting the cart before the horse. The first thing you got to do, I mean, saying yes, we want to hire a lobbyist doesn't magically make it happen now. It starts the process. That's all I'm hearing is that we want to have a vote. Let's have a vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Doherty.
Bates,
Was there
please.
Ms. Bates, go ahead.
When we talk about hiring a staff person to be a lobbyist, that could take over a year to get that into the budget and to hire someone. And my legislative friends are ready to help us with projects right now that they don't completely understand, and they are eager for us to have a lobbyist who can help them understand some of these issues and move us forward for the county to get more funds, more legislative issues passed. The idea of hiring a legislative staff person before we do this is backwards. And we can, to Mr. Doherty's question or statement, when we pass this resolution, I believe we could hire McKee within a week, within a day possibly. This has been worked on. A lot of work has gone into this. I believe we're ready to make this happen. Our legislators are begging us to get a lobbyist so that we can help them help us. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, anyone have something new to add to the conversation?
Mr. Chairman.
Alan?
Alan, go ahead.
Ms. Allen, go ahead.
Thank you. Am I correct that we have floundered to some extent because we have not had staff, and our people who are interested in this have been trying to guide the whole county, which is herding cats. We all know that. So my question to you is part of the value of the lobbyist that's being recommended, that lobbyist will also help guide our function. We'll say, here's how other counties do it. Here's how we suggest that you do it so that you can be most efficient. And because we are experienced, we can help you. So in a way, they're not just a lobbyist, they're also contributing staff. Am I hearing that correctly? Thank you.
Ms. Gumbs, you want to take that question?
Yeah, so in their proposal, they do indicate that they will help us in that field. Also in the interview process, we discussed that specifically, and that is something they're going to help us with. Yes.
and
Mrs.
a
Sanchez.
follow-up and also
go
guidance
ahead.
in how, I'm sorry, also guidance in how we set a legislative, a legislative policy for the county.
Correct.
Thank you.
Priorities.
Mr. Sanchez, you were next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This issue has been discussed for many months, and I feel like the idea that we need a staff person to help us manage this is sort of a ninth inning suggestion that I would assumed had been already discussed previously. Personally, if we're going to add staff to help us come up with any kind of legislative priority, I'd be more in favor of hiring an administrator for the county and spending the money in that direction, which will help us in so many other ways as well. Not to mention just legislative priorities, rather than having a specific staff person working only on legislative priorities, which I can think of other departments where we may need help more. I'm not sure if that is something we would want to prioritize. I think that's just like a bigger conversation that we may need to have as far as staffing needs. But yeah, I would be more in favor of spending money switching to an administration type government.
Silva?
Mr. Chairman, may I call the question?
Who's speaking? Ms. Bates, go ahead.
Oh, I'll yield to Ms. Silva.
Thank you. I was just going to say that I agree with moving it forward. And I guess I would ask, if we had the staff, would we have as much of a need for this, or can we just move it forward because we've been talking about this for a long time, and for all the reasons already mentioned, it's a form of action. Thank you.
What was that last? Monica, what was the last thing you said?
Yes, Commissioner. So what I said is, for all the reasons that you've already mentioned, and Mr. Doherty and Mr. Sanchez, is moving it forward a form of some sort of action in the right direction.
Thank you. Yes. May I call the question?
Ms. Bates has called the question. Is there any objection to ending debate? Okay, seeing no objection, we'll go ahead and do a roll call vote.
You cannot do that.
You have to have a second.
You need to have- you
Need a second to that.
We had a second on the main motion.
No, on this one, no.
We had a second on the main motion. She called the question.
Yeah.
I asked
Mr.
if there were
Shepro.
objections. If there are no objections, we don't need to call the question. We just can vote.
No,
If you want to vote on calling the question, we can do that. Is someone objecting to voting on the call? Okay. Then let's take a roll call vote.
Bates,
Bates, yes.
Doherty,
Yes.
Molina,
Molina, no.
Silva,
Silva, yes.
Strathman, Gums,
Gums, yes.
Linder,
Linda, yes.
passes with
Okay.
1 no.
Okay. Any old business that anyone wants to bring up? Okay, co-chair comments. Ms. Gums, anything from you?
Yes, I just, I had gotten an email in reference to a request to allow chickens in county. So I reached out to our animal control director to see how he feels about that, and he'll get back to me shortly. But that's really something that they wanted the legislative agenda. The email I got was from a constituent, so I think we'll bring that up at the next meeting and maybe have her come and speak about it. But I also wanted to loop in Mr. Youngstead as well. So that's all I got. As far as any comments, no, I don't have any.
Question, please.
Go
Bates?
ahead.
Ms. Bates, go ahead.
I don't understand why this would be a legislative issue. I thought it was strictly a Kane County issue about the chickens. That doesn't have to go to the state. That would just
No.
stay
It's
in,
not. It's
King
not a
County.
state issue, but it's certainly an ordinance or something. So that is legislating.
Okay.
Zoning,
Okay.
So
zoning, it's zoning.
It's zoning.
Yeah. Some of the communities have been grappling with this too. They argue about whether or not you can have a rooster or just hens and how many. It'll be an issue for somebody to hash out, probably is zoning.
It's a good issue to discuss. Thank you.
Thanks.
Doherty.
Hey, yes, Mr. Doherty.
So I'm sorry, Michelle, just so I'm more informed, before we get to that point, we have a rule right now that doesn't allow them, or you need a certain number of acres. What's the current rule that we're gonna be looking at changing?
I can answer that, sir.
Okay,
States, what I understand from my constituent, who's probably the same one who contacted Ms. Gums, is that in unincorporated areas, you can have chickens if you have 1 acre of land. And if you have less than 1 acre, you can't. So I believe the idea is, could they have chickens on less than 1 acre?
okay, is that? Okay, that's what I need to know. Thank you.
Thank you.
But that would be a zoning issue, I believe.
Yeah.
Yes,
sounds like
no?
Yes,
I
it
don't
it
know.
would go to development.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else for the good of the committee? No executive sessions needed today, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Dave Smooth.
30 seconds.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We stand adjourned.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, both chairmen. Goodbye.
Thanks, guys.